We're the party that believes in Benjamin Franklin. Why do you hate Benjamin Franklin? Why is it that you think George Washington was an evil person for believing that we shouldn't have kings in this country?
With freshly posted U.S. National Guard soldiers watching carefully, demonstrators chanted outside the federal buildings in Los Angeles at the center of the protests against Donald Trump's raids targeting undocumented migrants.
President of the United States who's unhinged and has now crossed a red line in this country.
Maybe they shouldn't be governor.
But Trump stood his ground.
If we didn't get involved, right now, Los Angeles would be burning, just like it was burning a number of months ago with all the houses that were lost. Los Angeles right now would be on fire, and we have it in great shape and not playing around.
You know, it's tougher politically, but it would be easier if Democrats if we would get more consistent. And I know I've said this many times, and speaking in one voice, and in tying in our messages into people's beliefs, but mythology about American history. You know, it's easy to say, no, we believe that everyone, deserves due process, the way John Adams believed that at the Boston Massacre, the British soldiers who he decided to defend deserved due process. We're the party that believes in Benjamin Franklin. Why do you hate Benjamin Franklin? Why is it that you think George Washington was an evil person for believing that we shouldn't have kings in this country? So he turned down the fucking crown, pardon my French, and said, I'm only going to serve 2 terms. Why do you hate him? I think you turn it on them, and yes, it has to be a little bit childish, but I'm sorry, we have to know our audience, and we have to talk to them in that way. And every time we speak about Donald Trump, this is what drives me nuts. When he talks about there being criminals and this and that, and he makes up 34 count felon Donald Trump. That should be his name. Okay, it shouldn't be Donald Trump. It shouldn't be Mr. Trump. It shouldn't be President Trump. It should be 34 count felon Donald Trump. Donald Trump, the criminal, wants to ask us why we want to defend the rights of people who have not been proven guilty in Los Angeles. I don't think a criminal convicted in a court of law really has the standing to ask that question. I don't think it's someone who rejects John Adams and Ben Franklin and Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and what they argued that we should have everyone have due process so we have a society that believes in the Constitution. I don't think that's someone we're going to listen to. If he wants to worship Joseph McCarthy and Roy Cohn, and Bisbo and he wants to, Calhoun, maybe I'm getting a little too obscure for some people that don't know history, but Jefferson Davis, if that's what I think most people know that name. If that's what he wants to worship, I mean, it's the demons in U.S. history. And I think the messaging has to be for people. It can't just be about this nuance or they won't get it. We have to tie into Americans' mythology and understanding of our history, and that we are on the right side of this. We stand with those who built this system, who built a constitution so there'd be equal rights. Okay. We didn't get convicted of 34 counts. You did with the piss cotton candy hair. Sorry, I had to say that. But I mean, I do. I think that's the way to do it every time. It's just like the other thing I talk about economically. How is it that since Reagan, 48 million of 49 million jobs have been created by Democrats, and we don't say that every time? Once you take out the net job losses, under Trump and the none created by George W. Bush, and you go through, whatever it was, 23 million by Clinton and the millions by Biden, how can we have that statistic and not use it? And so define Donald Trump as a criminal every time you talk about him, begin with that, and then get to the fact that he's on the side of all the worst demons in history. Pick a few that people know. I bet Joe McCarthy has got a pretty low approval rating because anything people have heard about him is bad, and rightfully so. That's what I would do. So I just figured I'd end with a commentary, and really it's along the lines of what we've been saying this whole time. Stand up, folks. We all have to have the courage to stand up. I know we're scared. I know that, there's fear. There is, there's trepidation. There is anger, violently doesn't solve anything. Violent, if you, behave violently, then ends up not only hurting our cause, you will end up in prison and it will end up harming your life. But we have this, No Kings rally coming up on Saturday. Let me explain to you. When those protests were going on in Hungary, when they were going on in Serbia against their fascists, 1/6 of the Serbian population turned out in Belgrade. Think about that for a second. 1/6. This is the United States of America, right? I mean, you can look back to Rome and we look back to Greece and Athens, but the first, real long-lasting constitutional republic that was a model for the world at one point in time that helped spur democracy on across the world. Now is not a time for us to be silent. Think of the generations before. I'm sure many of you, whether it's Band of Brothers or something of that nature, have watched something and seen. Think of the sacrifices. I had a grandfather-in-law, my wife's grandfather, who was in the Battle of the Bulge, and he was there, and they basically had to make him go in for medical treatment. I think he may have been shot 3 times because the first and the second time in the below zero weather in the Ardennes, he refused because this was like a kid, 19, 20 years old at the time, fighting for his country, fighting for those freedoms that Donald Trump is assaulting right now. So back to Serbia. They got 1/6 of their population. All right. I'm going to challenge the rest of us to do half as well. We have our No Kings rallies. They are purposely not in Washington because we do not want to give Donald Trump any kind of an excuse to attack, to create a distraction where he can claim the protesters came here and started it, and they were trying to ruin my little birthday. Maybe they took one of the candles off the cake, so he's only 112 years old. I don't know, but they'll find a reason to perform violence and blame us. Well, we've got rallies. Joyce said there were 12 in Alabama. There are rallies all over the country. NoKings.org. Look it up, and you will be able to find a rally near you. I'm not going to beg you, but I will say, please, just in a kind way, go, be there. As I said, if you want to feel safe, know your rights. Know you can say, am I being arrested or I can leave? If it comes to that, which it very likely will not, but just be ready. Get a copy of a pocket constitution. Go with that. Know that you don't have to speak until a lawyer is present, but go. This show of force matters in light of what he just did in LA. He's announced that he plans to go to Chicago, Philadelphia, right? Other cities, Boston, New York. We need to tell him, no, stay the fuck away. Stay out. Stay where you're wanted, which I believe beyond the walls of Mara Bedbug or Mar-a-Lago, if you will. I don't think there are many places where he is actually wanted. Tell him to stay the hell out. And as I said before, governors like J.B. Pritzker and Kathy Hochul would be great if you had a joint, conference. If you haven't already, and speak out and tell them to stay out too. You've got it covered. You've handled this before. You know how to handle it. He knows how to come in and cause chaos and crime and corruption, incompetence, violence. That's what he does. Okay, so I'm going to return for the last time to what Serbia did. Serbia, 1/6 of their population. 1/12 of the U.S. population would be 20 million people. Imagine 20 million Americans on No Kings Day, again, nokings.org, coming out and marching for our rights, our Constitution, our democratic republic for the United States of America, and making it clear, no more of this shit. No more. This is not what this country was founded upon. We will not put up with it with a corrupt criminal in the White House, 34-count criminal who maybe to feel good in the morning because he didn't get enough of daddy's love. He needs to go out and send his jackbooted thugs to beat some heads in. No more. That's not America. 20 million. That would be 1/12 of our population. It'd be half of what Serbia accomplished. I know we can do this. I know it. We got 5 million out for those 2 protests a couple months ago. I think 5 million or so for each. I heard there were 6 million, I think, for one of them. All right. So we've got a tall order ahead. We got it, but a lot has happened since then. A lot has happened with tariffs. A lot has happened with the stock market crashing. A lot has happened with people going bankrupt and people losing their jobs. I think we can do this. I know we can do this. Do it. So that's it. That's the pitch. That's the proposal. Go out with your fellow Americans. Go out with those who look like you and don't look like you, who speak like you and don't speak like you, who pray like you and don't pray like you. Go out and let's be what we are and speak out for all of our rights. Let's do that this Saturday. NoKings.org. I'm going to be there here in Cincinnati. I hope that I'll see some of my fellow Cincinnatians out, and I hope across the country, 20 million people will make a statement that we will not put up with a king. You are not a king, Donnie. You are not a dictator. You are a president. You're barely that, if we're being honest. All right, folks, that's all I have for today.
Be sure to subscribe to Edge on YouTube. If you get any of your news videos from YouTube, go to Cliff's Edge and just hit the subscribe button. And also, if you want to subscribe, in addition to watching our Substacks, it's Blue Amp Substack. It's a Dave Schuster Substack. I hope you'll be part of our community. These are great conversations that Cliff and I are having every week with amazing guests like Joyce Vance and Malcolm Nance and so many other people that have just been insightful. And I hope.
And we have Ruth Ben-Ghiat on next week, who's an expert in fascism, which seems to be relevant about that.